Good morning, and thank you for joining AARP Louisiana's Fraud Telephone Town Hall. My name is Andrew Mull, and I'll be your moderator today. In case you didn't know, April is AARP's Fraud Prevention Month, and we've been mobilizing communities nationwide with free events and expert resources to help Americans protect themselves. This conversation today is part of that effort and is focused on financial fraud schemes, which are becoming more numerous, sophisticated, and costly, particularly those involving investments, cryptocurrency, government impersonation, and online relationships. If you've joined us before, you know how this works. It's exactly like a radio
The
call-in
event is
show.
in music hold.
So if you'd like to ask a question or share a comment, press *3 on your telephone
Music
keypad
hold ended.
be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in the queue to ask your question live. We also recommend having a pen and paper handy, as we'll be sharing helpful resources and reporting information. So let's get started. You know our guests very well, but I'm happy to introduce them again to you. We have Clinton Epperson, Supervisory Special Agent with the FBI, who oversees complex financial crime investigations for the FBI's New Orleans division. Welcome back, Clinton.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to share some information about the financial fraud schemes we're seeing across Louisiana. Real briefly about myself, I've been in law enforcement for more than 23 years, and I'm currently the supervisor of the complex financial crimes here in Louisiana, based out of New Orleans. So I have the opportunity to see most, if not all, of the allegation, complaints, and reports dealing with fraud that affects our citizens throughout the state.
Fantastic. And of course, we also have Krista Bradford. Welcome back, Krista. As you all know, Krista Bradford has been on our program many times and is also part of the FBI. So Krista, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having us. I've been on our white collar crime squad since 2010, investigating all sorts of white collar crime. And I'm also on our evidence response team, and I'm a crisis negotiator for the FBI.
Thank you both so much. So let's begin by learning a little bit more about the FBI and what you do to help keep people safe from scams and fraud. And we're getting a lot of questions lined up, so I'm gonna toss it to the both of you. Clinton, we'll start with you. What are you seeing out there right now, and how can we help keep people safe from scams and fraud?
So it's events like this that can be helpful, spreading the information about what's going on, what we're seeing, and how to stay safe. I can tell you from the FBI's perspective, we find corporate fraud to be the highest priority. And that's what you think of when you think of investment frauds, when you think of, you think of the 2008 kind of financial crisis that we had with the collapse of banking institutions and the fraud that was associated with that. We also have cyber-enabled fraud, which is a lot of what we're seeing on an individual level. Our threat actors from all over the country and all over the world are using their cyber capabilities to reach out and defraud citizens throughout the nation, including here in Louisiana. Some of the notable kind of make it real for you. Some of the notable cases we've had. If you've seen on the news in this area of Southeast Louisiana, there's a recent trial with staged automobile accidents, and that's our squad that conducted that investigation and just completed that, the first of 2 trials. And that's having a real impact, taking those type of individuals off the street to try to, because that affects us all. When you talk about the high prices of auto insurance in the state, that affects us all, stopping that sort of fraud and shining a light on it.
And we also right now have an ongoing investigation similar to the staged auto accidents, which increases everybody's auto insurance. We do have a website up right now seeking victims in the McClenny Mosley Associates case, which was a law firm who fraudulently sent out thousands of letters saying that they represented homeowners to insurance companies. And again, it affects all of our homeowners and insurance in the state. So we're currently seeking victims in that case to try to get that investigation wrapped up.
And that currently is affecting hundreds of Louisiana citizens.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, and so first of all, I should mention again, if you're just joining us, you've joined an interactive telephone town hall with AARP and FBI agents Clinton Epperson and Krista Bradford. We are just at the beginning of a great conversation. We're so glad you've joined us. But let's get to a couple things real quick, and then we're gonna jump into some calls. Clinton and Krista, financial fraud schemes seem to be growing and changing rapidly. Can you talk about why financial fraud, especially investment and crypto scams, has become such a major concern?
It's a major concern because when we consider on the daily basis how often we have to think about fraud, whether it's a text message from an unknown person, whether it's a phone call from an unknown phone number, we are constantly having to consider fraud in our lives. And that's unlike any other violation we have. We're relatively safe from violence, but fraud impacts us all. And then when we're talking about cryptocurrency, the speed at which that money moves makes it a very challenging threat. And it often is going to, we'll say, adversarial countries that are not cooperative with judicial process for the United States. So that creates further challenges. And it just moves so quickly. And it's so enticing because it's a very hot button issue of cryptocurrency. And seemingly, you hear of people making fortunes on small investments. So it's very enticing. It's very of the now. It's a hot topic. So you take all those factors in it. It's also a very complicated kind of currency. So people see that opportunity and they quickly get involved, maybe without all the information. And so speed that it moves out of the country makes it a very, very large threat for us, especially for the citizens of Louisiana.
Good information. Thank you, Clinton. We're going to go now to a live caller from Shreveport. We have Edna Pearson, and we're going to go to her live now. Edna, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead and ask your question, Edna.
My question is, why is there so much calling seniors from last year, even after the rollies were ended in December, and still calling every day, wanting to know if you have Medicare Part A and B, and wants to know your business, wants to know your name. They don't have any of the information. And they call every day. And so they have a broken language. They speak English, but broken language. And so we wonder what can be done to stop them from calling our houses all day, every day. It starts like 9 in the morning until 5 or 6 in the evening.
Yes, Edna, thank you. It's a great question. I'll tell you that I get those same phone calls. One way, the phone is a very easy way to interact with individuals, and they make it sound enticing, and they make it sound like they're experts, and they're from the agency that they're claiming to be from, and it's successful for them. There's a lot of individuals that will then provide that information and try to get information or try to get their benefits, but they're just talking to scam artists. One of the ways to protect yourself is to screen your phone calls. Most cell phones now, if you have only a landline, it would be more difficult. But if you have a cell phone, you can configure your cell phone by ensuring that only your known contacts will ring through. That's what I do with my phone, my personal phone, is that if it's a number that's unknown to me, my phone doesn't even ring. And I can tell you that my personal phone, probably 7 or 8 calls every single day that are on my phone, it shows up as red as potential scam. But if I don't know the number, I'm not going to answer the telephone. And if it's somebody that I just don't have programmed in my phone, they can leave a message and I can get back to them if it's something that I want to, someone I do want to talk to. But if I'm getting unsolicited phone calls from an unknown number, I do not interact with those. And that's probably the best way to keep yourself safe, because then if you're not there to talk to and to interact with it all, then their scam with regards to you has failed.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's always
Thank you so much.
unavailable. That's the number that comes. That's what the name comes up. Unavailable.
Yep. I would not answer that phone call. And if they're legitimate and it's somebody that you do want to talk to, oftentimes they're going to leave a message and you can just call them back. Maybe they're calling from a different location and it's a legitimate reason. Make them leave a message. Screen your phone calls. Don't interact with unknowns.
Right. And you're very smart not to share any information with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Edna. One scam we hear more about now is called pig butchering. Ugly name, even uglier scam. Can you explain what this is and how people get pulled into these investments or cryptocurrency schemes?
Sure. I'd love to talk about that. Pig butchering can take many forms, but in its essence, it is enticing somebody to invest in cryptocurrency. Seemingly, people are making a lot of money in it. So the ways they get contacted are manyfold. It could be liking a Facebook post on a crypto video or a crypto website, like an advertisement. They know that you're interested. Often so they know that you're interested. They might start a romance scheme potentially if they've identified you through social media as being, single, and they start a relationship. Even if you're not single, we've seen that as well. They'll start relationships. They might be in a relationship for weeks or months before they broach the topic of cryptocurrency investment. And pretty invariably, the person will claim to have an inside information. They'll have proprietary new software that allows them to invest in a more successful way than your average investing firm. Then they'll have that person, they'll send them like a link to a website, and they'll send you to, for instance, they'll send you to a legitimate location like Coinbase and say, just type in this address to our software, and you'll be able to find it. Because there's so many of them that I don't believe that the legitimate crypto exchanges can shut them down and quickly enough. So then you go to their software, you wire them money, and it might be a small amount at first, right? They're going to say, don't worry, it's going to be a small amount. Maybe it's just a few $100s or $1,000. And then because you've downloaded their software, it's going to appear that your money is there. And you're going to see it just like you would on a banking app. It's going to look very legitimate and very professional. And then you're going to watch it over the course of a couple of days or a week. And the returns on that investment are going to be astronomical. So then they're going to pressure you, well, if you're not investing more, then you're losing out on future gains. And so they wire more money, or they enter it into a crypto ATM, and they're going to see that that their money has gone to this investment. All the while, keep in mind, this money has never gone into the investment. And what they're seeing that looks legitimate on this financial app is just a picture and just their software, and they're changing the numbers how they want to change them. So you're going to see the money increase. They're going to keep asking for money. And then at some point, either you're out of money or you want to pull something out, and you try to make a transaction to remove some of that money. And we're talking astronomical returns. A few thousand can turn into a few million. So when you try to pull out the money, you'll get error messages, and it'll talk about, there's been a tax or a fee because it's in a different country, or they're going to say that your account's being investigated for fraud, and then they need money to do away with that investigation. They're going to keep asking for money essentially until you're out of it or are done paying them, and then they will break off conversation and any contact with you. So that's kind of the term pig butchering is not created by us. It's a term that they use in Southeast Asia, where a lot of the crypto compounds are located, where it's basically just a whole industry set up and they have different floors for different languages. and they're going to they specialize in these type of schemes. So ultimately, they're going to once they've drained all the money they can from their victims, they will then cut off contact. And again, because the crypto is going out of the United States, it's not on a legitimate server at this point and is a legitimate exchange. And they're in adversarial countries who aren't going to give us bank records of what those transactions are. The money is basically gone, and that's kind of
Yeah.
where the pig butchering comes from.
We've heard a lot from our members about various investment scams just like that. We want to hear from you, our listeners. So please press *3 on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and will place you in the queue. And I see our queue is starting to fill up. So we're going to go there in 1 second. But before we do, I want to plug some exciting news around crypto. Here at AARP, we've been focusing on these crypto scams and how to stop them. And in fact, we helped pass legislation here in Louisiana last year that has put much safer protections around these crypto kiosks that Clinton was just talking about that will prevent future scams. However, as Clinton and Krista have mentioned repeatedly already this morning, we all have to continue to remain vigilant. So we want to hear from our audience. Please, if you have a question you'd like to ask, please press *3 on your telephone keypad, and you'll be connected with one of our staff members who will get you right into Clinton and Krista, and you'll be able to ask your question. We actually have Frank who has a question, and we're going to go to him now. Let's see. Frank, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am here.
Okay. Frank, why don't you go ahead and ask your question to Clinton or to Krista?
Yeah, this is changing subjects a little bit, but I was wondering how can my family and I play a more active role in identifying and preventing healthcare fraud? What specific signs should we be looking out for, and what can we do to protect ourselves and our loved ones?
That's a good question, Frank. I would say just kind of how Miss Edna, our last caller, was talking about people are calling her and asking her for information saying they're from Medicare. One is definitely don't give any information over the phone we see cases where like unsolicited people are getting Medicare beneficiaries are getting called and offered. One of the big ones more recently is like genetic testing for like cancer. Which you shouldn't be getting any unsolicited calls for that. Same thing with durable medical equipment. Like sometimes people will call and say, do you need braces? Do you need a scooter? And unless it's coming from your treating physician, you shouldn't be getting unsolicited calls or getting that kind of thing, because that would indicate that it's not medically necessary if it's not being ordered by your treating physician. Another thing that we always suggest is, everybody gets their explanation of benefits from their insurance company monthly. It's really good to review those to make sure that you're getting billed for services that you're actually receiving. So I would say those are the biggest ways to protect you and your family from healthcare fraud is, again, not any unsolicited calls for Medicare or any equipment or genetic testing, anything like that is not legitimate.
And I'd like to add something to that. As far as the genetic testing, it sounds good. Like, hey, I would like to know if I'm predisposed to, cancer diagnoses. Something to keep in mind, some of these tests are only covered once in your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So, and these individuals that are giving you unsolicited phone calls and asking you to do these tests, they're not really concerned with the results, and sometimes they don't even provide results at all. And there might come a time in your life when it is more important to have those. And if you've been victimized by one of these frauds, then that benefit and that test might not be available to you.
Right. We had that in a case recently, in a genetic testing case, where people were getting tested, but never went to their treating physician. They never saw the results. And like S.A. Epperson said, that's it. Like Medicare only pays for it one time because it's so expensive. So it really only needs to be from your treating physician who's going to use it in your treatment plan.
Thank you, guys. We have another caller, and it's regarding something, Clinton, I think you might have mentioned, maybe Krista, you mentioned it. It's regarding romance scams. I am going to make him or her live now, and let's see if they're there. Caller, are you there?
AARP. We talk about the FBI. I'm trying to get paid for this, so I'll call you back.
Caller, are you there?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello, do you have a question for the FBI?
Yeah, I do. Okay.
Okay, go for it.
Pardon me? Okay. It's been like a year and something. My sister been fooled. They've been sending gift cards, and he's in the military. He sent pictures of a military person, and then the person's name is real, but when they contact, that's not him. He don't have the right emblem on his uniform. So we've been fussing with it so far. He was supposed to get the house fixed. He couldn't get that. She gave him all our money, and she's teaching school and getting Social Security. And now we finally got on about him. He had to come to Dallas. He went to Dallas. He never showed up, talking about it was an accident. So finally, she got the consensus that it wasn't real. Now somebody else done called, which is the same person. He's supposed to be an actor, but he got in an accident, and she buying gift cards and sending over there. We don't know what to do because we can't get the information from her.
That's difficult.
Like classic romance scam. Go ahead, Krista. Sorry,
right. It sounds like that's okay. That does sound like a classic romance scam, and we deal with this a lot, where we have family members who are recognizing that a loved one is a victim of a romance scam, but they won't believe it or don't believe it. That's very difficult, but that definitely sounds like a romance scam.
I mean, the best option is to continue trying to talk with her.
Mm-hmm.
We often have these conversations when a family member calls us. We're happy to talk to individuals
Mm-hmm.
and try to be that authoritative voice. But ultimately, it's up to that individual. And if they can't be convinced that this relationship's not real, it's very difficult to stop them from sending those type of gift cards.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, gift cards are a red flag for us all the time. If you're sending money via gift cards, that is a huge red flag from our perspective. Depending on the age, you can reach out to the Louisiana Elderly Protective Services. They can get involved potentially, and depending on their age, they do have abilities to restrict some of the financial movements, depending on how that person's banking is set up. But that's very limited in very limited situations. But being supportive, as far as being empathetic and trying to speak with them, is the best thing you should be doing. And it sounds like you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can't force people to believe that it's a fraudulent romance scam, right? We can only talk to them, and it's up to them to decide if they want to take that advice.
Thanks, guys. And again, press *3 if you'd like to ask a question of Krista or Clinton. And if you want to share your story, if you have a fraud story that you'd like to share, now's the time to do it. Clinton, you mentioned Elderly Protective Services. For those in Louisiana who want to call Elderly Protective Services for a situation just like our last caller, you can call the toll-free number 833-577-6532. Now, the caveat is that the hours are only from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., so you can't call. It's not 24 hours. Of course, you can leave a voicemail and they'll get back to you. But if you want to call and hopefully talk to somebody live, then you would need to call between the hours of 8 to 4:30 p.m. Central Time. And again, that number is 833-577-6532. Again, press *3 if you would like to ask a question. If you would like to ask a question of Krista or Clinton, if you'd like to share your story, please do so. We also have a poll question. Have you or anyone you know ever been impacted by fraud in the last year? Have you or anyone you know been impacted by fraud in the last year? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, or press 3 if you don't know. So again, that's 1 yes, 2 no, and 3 you don't know. The other, let's see, first of all, let me check and see if we have anybody on the line. I don't think we do at the moment. So I want to go back quickly to another issue that we hear a lot about for Clinton and for Krista. It's another common scam that involves criminals pretending to be government officials. We heard from somebody asking about Medicare, but what should people know about government impersonation scams, and what are some red flags and some warning signs?
And we kind of covered this with Miss Edna's question and Mr. Frank's question about, don't give out information. The government's not going to call you and ask you for your personal information. So that's a big red flag. Another red flag, and the thing I think that we see the most is the caller, the scammer is saying whatever the issue is, it's an emergency, it's urgent, it has to be paid for right now. Also, the government is not going to ask you to make payments over the phone. They're not going to ask you to send gift cards. We see that a lot. We see where people are calling and saying, Judge so-and-so, you didn't show up for jury duty. They have a warrant out for your arrest. That's not going to happen. And with those cases, what we see is that oftentimes they'll say, send these gift cards or go buy gift cards, take pictures of the back and send them to us. And those are all huge red flags, because again, the government's not going to call you and ask you for your personal information, and they're not going to call you and ask you to make payments over the phone.
Especially not in crypto.
Right.
What I try to tell people, and I try to tell them it, kind of in a gentle way, if money has been involved in a crime, or if there's illegal proceeds of money that they shouldn't have, that a bad guy shouldn't have, we're going to take that money through a judicial process, and we're not going to call and ask that person for the money, right? We're just going to go to the bank and have the accounts frozen through judicial process, making sure a judge has signed off on it. A couple of tips. It's a little known fact that we see it on TV. We see FBI agents on TV show their creds. One of the things about our creds is that we're not going to send a picture of our credentials, right? The things that they hold up at the front door and they say we're the FBI. We're not allowed to let those be photographed, copied. We would never send an email or a text message trying to legitimize who we are through a picture of our credentials. Those are tightly controlled. I often have to make phone calls to people for various reasons who are rightly suspicious that the FBI is calling them. And what I ask them to do from the outset is I ask them, please look up the phone number to the FBI in New Orleans. You'll find it's going to be this, but don't trust me just because I'm on the phone with you and I'm claiming to be from the FBI. So if somebody calls you from a government agency, don't take the number they provide you necessarily. Look up the actual number online, verify it through multiple sources if you need to. Then you can call that. They can call. So what I tell people on the phone is that call the office and have them forward the phone call to me. Mm-hmm. That way you have a better sense that you're actually talking to the FBI because you've found the number. You're going to talk to the call takers in the office, and then they're going to forward it to me. So oftentimes, things to keep in mind about phone numbers. A scammer can make their number appear to be from our office, and we've had instances where victims it said FBI New Orleans because they can manipulate through online sources what the phone number is going to appear on your readout on your phone. So even when it looks exactly correct, take the extra steps, be a little bit suspicious. We appreciate that because we know that you're possibly not going to be victimized in the future. And and also one other thing, it's a small thing. We're pretty polite people. We are professional and polite people. The agents that I supervise and work in this office are very nice. We talk to victims and they talk about how rude the scammers are, and they're demanding, they're yelling, and at times we'll call them names. And that's not what we do. And that's a small thing, but it's kind of a big red flag.
Mm-hmm. Well, good to know. Well, so on behalf of AARP Louisiana, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking part in today's telephone town hall. Want to also thank Special Agent Clinton Epperson, Special Agent Krista Bradford for joining us and giving us a chance to learn a little bit more about some of the fraud and scams to be watching out for. Want to remind everyone really quickly that we'll be hosting free shred events across the state as a way to help you protect yourself from fraud and scams. On Saturday, this coming Saturday, we'll be in Baton Rouge, Ascension Parish, and New Orleans. And on Saturday, April 25th, we'll be in Shreveport and Livingston. So to learn more about where those events will be and to register, visit us on aarp.org/LA. And we apologize if we weren't able to get to your question. If you stay on the line, you'll be able to leave us a voicemail with your question or your comment. You can also always get valuable information through AARP publications on our website at aarp.org or by calling us 1-888-687-2277. Thank you again to everyone. Goodbye. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.